wholeness, wholeness, wholeness. I know I like to say things in 3. So I know it's like super early for a lot of you on this beautiful Saturday morning. It is currently March 16th, 2024. And I do want to talk about the eclipse that is happening on April 8th. Yes, I do know that we have a blood moon coming up and the full moon in Libra, but I really want to focus on this eclipse because this is a major one. This is a big one. Greetings, everyone coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to give like certain locations. I'm going to give certain zodiac signs. However, I do want you all to keep in mind that this energy is global. It's going to impact everyone. Great rising. Good morning. Good morning. I say both because, you know, they each play a specific role in our divine feminine and masculine energies. But can y'all let me know if y'all can hear me well? I'm going to take a sip of water. Can you all hear me? So I really want to talk about this because this is going to have a massive impact with our water. This is going to have a massive impact with the workspace. This is going to have a massive impact with your body. And we've had Chiron conjunct the North Node for some time now. And I highly advise all of you to look at where your Chiron placement is at. Thank you for looking at where your Chiron placement is at, because every Chiron placement is associated with a body part. Now, this eclipse is beyond just like Chiron, right? There's a Aries stellium. And if you see me looking around, it's because I have the chart in one spot and then I have some notes. I didn't take a lot of notes, to be honest, on another device. So that's why I'm kind of looking everywhere. So we're going to have Mercury, we're going to have the moon, the sun, obviously, because this is a new moon. We're going to have Chiron, we're going to have the North Node, and we're going to have Venus in the sign of Aries. We do have a 9th house stellium, which is really talking about how this is going to travel through the globe. Okay, this is really going to impact massive religions, okay, regardless of what religion you follow. This is going to impact massive philosophies and a shift. We have Pluto in the 6th house. So I'm just giving y'all some of these placements and then I'm going to talk about it. So we have Pluto in the 6th house, and then we have Jupiter and Uranus in the 10th house. The rising sign will be Leo, and the descending sign will be Aquarius. So it's going to travel through from Mexico, entering into Texas, and it's going to travel all the way through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And it's gonna keep going up. But I just wanted to bring up the United States specifically because that is where it's going to be seen and felt the most. Not to say that if you don't live in those areas, you're not going to feel it. I would be lying if I say that you are not going to feel that energy just because you aren't living in those areas. Those areas are going to be massive catalysts for this impact. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of try to take this a little bit slow, so bear with me. I am also on day 16 of my fasting, my detox, and so my energy is like super high. Hello, greetings everyone. All right, so if you are an Aries rising, Aries moon, Aries sun, I just advise anyone to look at their Aries placement in general. okay? If you are a Capricorn, if you are a Cancer, if you are a Libra, these are going to impact you the most. This is going to be very transformative and many different ways depending on your energetic signature, what your chart has for you. But nonetheless, it is definitely going to bring a massive change in your life. So I would even say, Scorpio and Aquarius and Leo for sure. But again, any whatever your zodiac sign is, okay? We have all the zodiacs in our chart, right? Just in different placements, and some may be active, some may be dormant, some may be stronger than others, right? Depending on the degree in the house and the way that they're aspected in your chart. And then take a sip of water. Let's start with the water, right? Oh, Pisces also, if you are Pisces, I definitely meant to say that. So we also have a stellium in Pisces. We have Saturn, we have Neptune, and we're going to have Mars in the sign of Pisces, okay? Mars and Saturn will be in the 7th house and Neptune in the 8th house. And this is why because of the 8th house placement and the 7th house, a lot of renegotiation or renewal or changes in contracts are going to occur. We've already seen a massive, I guess I'm not just starting with the water. Okay, let's just go with it. Let's flow. We've already seen a massive shift when it comes down to like the AI movement, when it comes down to people's careers. And the 6th house is daily life routines. It is pets. It is, your wellness or health, right? Pisces is also, that's the 6th house. That's Pluto and Aquarius. And for those of you who didn't catch the Pluto and Aquarius, I mentioned, that being a big part of your blood, right? How it affects your blood and the plasma in your system. Abundance of bliss to all. Ashe. So I strongly advise that if you haven't done a form of detoxing, now is definitely the time to prepare yourself for this. I can see how there's going to be, let me keep going with the business and the change. I can see how a lot of people are going to experience job loss at a higher rate than they have experienced before due to AI advancement. They've already been, ushering this out to the people. However, how this is looking with Jupiter and Uranus being in the 10th house, this is very chaotic in the workplace. This is very much because Uranus is spontaneous. It's rebellious. It's unorthodox, right? It's almost unpredictable in a way, right? So there's going to be massive layoffs, massive collapses because of, and then they're in Taurus. They're in the sign of Taurus. So changes in our finances, right? This could be, more, I would definitely say this is going to impact Wall Street. This is going to impact a lot of stocks. If you're into trading and whatnot, I would definitely pay attention to that. Definitely, the ways of your income, if you haven't already pivoted in a more technological way, this is something you want to pay attention to. There's a lot of jobs that's already being replaced, such as when you go to the supermarket, there may not be a cashier. It may be, a self-checkout. You may see machines, cleaning the floors and whatnot. And so you're not really seeing people doing this maintenance work and whatnot, right? And so this is going to be at a massive, like, expedited type of degree. Excuse me. Excuse me. We've seen wars happening globally for the longest of time now, but it's increased tremendously within the last couple of years, actually. And I do see how this can really impact the United States, because Aries is ruled by Mars, and that is militant, right? So I can definitely see like social injustices happening. Okay, I can see, if I'm not mistaken, they were even saying, like, bringing out National Guards. And I can definitely see that with Mars and Pisces, the National Guards. So a lot of activities when it comes down to global contracts, when it comes down to global war and things escalating at a rapid pace that is very destructive. Okay, this energy does look very, very destructive. I usually say, the ancestors used to say when there was a time of an eclipse, not to go out during the eclipse, because it doesn't necessarily bring good fortune, they would say. And I haven't always resonated with that due to my personal experiences. However, with this specific chart, with this specific eclipse, the way that the energies have been moving with all the solar flares and all the activities that's been happening in the heavens above, if you will, right? This energy has been very different and very potent than we have experienced before. It's a lot hotter than we know it to be. I can definitely see a lot of solar activity, even though it's a solar eclipse, right? That's the type. It's a new moon's total solar eclipse. And during total solar eclipse is when the moon obstructs the sun, and it creates like a ring of fire in that eclipse. It's completely covering the sun. Okay. A lot of wars has occurred during a total eclipse, or eclipses in general, in the sign of Aries. That has been shown. I'm sorry, my phone just did some things here. Okay. And so I can definitely see how this is going to be coming to the United States. And so definitely prepare yourself for that. This information is not to, promote fear mongering, but preparation. I think that's really important for everyone to pay attention to, because as much as we have free will, we also have to pay attention to what the energies are happening around us for us to choose how we're going to navigate through this energy, right? You have the freedom of choice to choose between this and that, but you may not always have a say as to what has occurred. For example, you can't control another person. You can only control yourself. And so if another person says something that you don't like, you have the freedom of choice, of free will, to choose if you're going to react or respond or not respond at all to that situation, right? It doesn't take away from the fact that something was said or something was done. And so I definitely can see massive water contamination at a greater level than we have experienced before. I could also see possible water shortages. And if I'm not mistaken, there is currently already like a water shortage happening in Mexico, and this eclipse is going through Mexico as well. And so I would really advise all of you to really ask yourself, what is your water source? What are you doing to filter your water, clean your water, etc.? Right? You know, some people are saying, you know, make sure you don't come out, that you stack up, you know, food and water for weeks at a time. And I always say, like, those things are necessary for survival anyway. At any given time, anything can happen. I can definitely see how this energy can create a blackout, especially with like Uranus in the 10th house, even though that's, you know, career, the house of career. A lot of businesses, a lot of us rely on, you know, our electricity from a company, right? A massive company. And I can see how there's going to be massive changes in that. We've also been experiencing glitches in the internet and these social networks, etc. And we see how, without naming certain apps, how there's contracts to ban these apps. And so there are going to be massive changes as to how you are living your daily life, your daily routine. Pluto is about transformation. Pluto is about death and destruction, if you will, for that transformation. And it's in the 6th house. Again, you're the house of daily routines, right? Pisces can be your medicine and Pisces can be your poison. And with Mars and Pisces at 13 degrees, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, 13 degrees, I'm sorry. In the 7th house, I can see how, you know, the same way we just experienced a massive pandemic, for lack of better terms, in 2020, I can definitely see how they're going to try to usher in some other forms of disruptions to one's wellness, disruption to one's physical and spiritual wellness, which is why I say, look at where your Chiron is at. Your Chiron is the wounded warrior. Okay? Your Chiron is something that seems unfixable but navigating through, right? It's something that appears as you have to live with it forever. However, it's about becoming the alchemist. Okay, it's becoming the alchemist in your own life. If you are a person who experiences a lot of headaches, or perhaps your Mars is in Aries, you know, that will be something that I would really pay attention to. I would pay attention to maybe covering your head at that time, doing a head wash, doing a spiritual bath, or doing a spiritual cleanse, you know, maybe even with smoke or sound frequency. Okay. If you've experienced in certain areas, contaminated water, then again, what are you doing? I would say get maybe like more shungites, get more filtration. Excuse me. I actually do have like a filtration system. These things are going to impact your blood. These things are going to impact your cells. It's going to impact your energy as a whole. And so preparing wisely, right, to sustain this energy. Venus doesn't necessarily like to be in the sign of Aries, because when Venus is in Aries, she's very much, expressing more frustration, anger. It could be passion as well and motivation for her values, but Venus does not like to be in the sign of Aries. Aries can be very impulsive, and so I can see how a lot of people are either going to impulsively leave their jobs, or they're going to just get laid off and possibly react or respond impulsively. I can definitely see how this energy can be or create some sort of like massive revolution collectively as a whole. We have what's in Sagittarius, the vertex. So the vertex in the 5th house in Sagittarius, I definitely see how a lot of, like we mentioned, social media, right? And how a lot of people are making money through social media. And this has been able to bring them a lot of good fortune, a lot of energy to be seen more. And so a vortex energy is a fated situation. It's a fated event that's meant to happen. It's a bit, I don't want to say stronger than your North Node per se, but your North Node is like your destination, whereas your vortex are things, people, situations that are destined to happen. And so I would definitely, I think Hierophant energy, right? And like high priest energy. So I could definitely see how a lot of churches are going to be crumbling down more than ever. I definitely see a massive challenge to people's rights, like God-given rights on here. And so similar to like a civil war, but not necessarily with just like the people in the government. I would definitely say you can see those things. I can definitely see a lot more brutality, military brutality. I can also see a lot of exposure happening afterwards. Now, you want to keep in mind, eclipse energy is going to be active for even 6 weeks afterwards. You're going to feel that energy for, I always say 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after. And so, we're here before and we see all these massive government exposures, right? That is really being put out there when it comes down to like child trafficking, sex trafficking, when it comes down to just them, the government in itself using the legal system in a way where they're not following the law themselves. All right. I can see how people are going to, possible, like I highly wouldn't recommend you travel. If you're traveling out of the country at this time, I don't see that being a good idea. And that's just my suggestion. You do as you please. You do as you will. The reason for that is because we do have Mercury in Aries, which loves movement, right? It moves fast. This is going to happen quick, fast. During this total solar eclipse with Chiron happening in the 9th house. And so this is going to impact multiple countries, all right? This is going to impact multiple because we also have the North Node and Venus in the 8th house, right? Like I said, Venus is not happy in the sign of Aries. She's in the 8th house. This is definitely toxic feminine energy, right? This is the lower feminine energy. And yeah, there is a such thing as like toxic and healthy. And so you can definitely see how people are being more tapped into like, their shadow side and whatnot. Good morning. And that being an energy that has been like they've been socially conditioning people to kind of become numb to this information or desensitized, right, from these situations. And so I can definitely see an exposure of that, but I could also see how this is going to create, it's really big, it's really impactful. Hello, greetings. I really wanted to take down more notes to be a lot more organized with this situation. So, like I said, let me slow down. In the workplace, with Wall Street, with the economy, definitely the shift in economy, we already know that the dollar doesn't have value. And it at this point, everybody's like, oh, it's about the money, it's about the money. We know it's not even about the money anymore. They can print out money at any given time, right? Because in truth, we are abundance. And so these collapses, these changes, these hardships that this solar eclipse energy is trying to usher through this portal is really going to be to create or initiate, right? Because Aries is the initiator, to initiate a way through paving your own path, a way to initiate a path that is going to be more bountiful and fruitful for your labor. But how are you going to do that, right? These are the questions you need to really ask yourself. It's not to be in the lower space of just, stay locked at home and, have food and water, for saved for 6 weeks and whatnot. It's not just that, right? It's how are you, that's just like preparation, right? That's just survival. How do you go from surviving to thriving, right? So how are you going to thrive through this information? Your body, right? Aries being the head. Aries, so I could definitely see a form of like beheading with this energy as well. Excuse me. Neptune in Pisces is very much going to create a lot of confusion during this time. And Mercury's going to be in retrograde actually. Mercury's going to be in retrograde during this solar eclipse. And so that's another reason why I say, traveling abroad may not necessarily be a good thing. I can see massive delays. I can see, and not just in traveling, this could also be, more aircrafts crashing, okay? This can be destruction of water, with Pisces being, being, where's in the 8th house? Yeah. With Pisces in Neptune and Pisces in the 8th house, besides water shortage or droughts, I can definitely see maybe a lot more hurricanes or tsunamis, or even animals, or sea creatures is the correct term, sea creatures, because they may not necessarily be like mammals of the ocean, but sea creatures coming up to the surface, a lot more aggression, a lot more raging emotions, okay? Like, this can be considered like sacred rage, or this can even, if you channel it in such a divine way that it becomes motivational for you, right? Or this can be very destructive to your nature and the people around you. So this doesn't just require emotional intelligence. This energy is requiring you to have tools for emotional regulation, for emotional integration, and to be in a space so connected with source and yourself, to where even when you are simply being, you are able to respond rather than react to this information in accordance to your highest and greatest good. This energy is going to be great for taking risks. I want to say after the eclipse, right? It's going to usher you the energy to be courageous, to take a risk and a leap of faith into an area that you may have been wanting to move forward through. And I would say maybe more like in May, okay? just because you'll be out of the retrograde and post shadow energy of Mercury's retrograde, which I did a video on Mercury retrograde as well. And so you want to pay attention to what I mentioned in that video, because there's a lot of information in that video itself. I also didn't mention this earlier in the video, and I wanted to mention it. If you have, I will look at your Aries placements, and I will look at if you have it between the degrees of 15 degrees to about, I want to say 25 degrees, because we have Chiron at 24 degrees as well. The sun is going to be at 27, so it could even be from 15 degrees to about 28, 29 degrees. 29, I really think if you have your Aries at 29 degrees, you are going to feel the impact of this energy, but you'll be a little bit more discerning of how to navigate that energy, for sure, is what I'm picking up intuitively, because when you get to the 29 degrees, you had ushered through the other degrees already, right? But especially if you have 15 degrees, if you have 27 degrees, the moon will be at 10 degrees. And this is so let me give you time frame, right? So it starts around 12, what was it? I want to say like 12:15, 12:20-ish. Eastern Standard Time, and it is going to be at the peak at 3:35. At 3:35 will be the peak of this eclipse, and then the eclipse isn't over until almost 5 p.m. All right, so this is all day. This energy is going to be very chaotic. It can be very confusing for a lot of people. It's going to challenge a lot of people's religious views. It's going to challenge a lot of philosophies, a lot of indoctrinations, a lot of conditionings. It's really to, like I said, usher in you connecting with yourself. I would definitely say if you are a person who is easily susceptible to some sort of like psychosis and whatnot, to really be mindful and do a lot of grounding at this time. And maybe if you are super empathic, to just really take time for yourself. And this energy also speaks of isolation, which is why I brought up the pandemic. We've seen during that time period how they wanted to isolate everyone for massive change in the world. Obviously, there was way more other agendas that was put into that. And that's why I mentioned like government contracts, because, if you think about the seed, 19, that in itself was already not trademark, patented years before, if I'm not mistaken, 2008 or 2005, around there, in between there. Y'all gonna have to do your research when it comes down to this. I very much meant to have all this information written down, and I didn't. But I really wanted to talk about this energy because it is a massive energy that we need to prepare for. One of my favorite sayings, and it's so funny because I never used to hear other people say it, but I'm hearing other like astrologers also say too, and I didn't create this saying anyways, but it's like predicting the weather. If you know it's gonna rain outside, right? This goes back to the free will. If you know it's gonna rain outside, and you're this rain is not just regular rain, it's like a storm, right? and you have to go outside and you know you're going to get wet, you have the free will, the choice to take an umbrella with you or not. And that's going to determine how wet you actually get from this storm. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the storm is happening in itself. That's what the fuck this is, right? This is like a massive like storm happening. And how you choose to navigate through that storm is, you know, how the outcome can be produced to you in a lighter way, in a way that can bring you greater fortune or destruction. And I feel like either way, it's gonna have, because of Venus in Aries and the North Node in retrograde in Aries, this very much is giving, if there are cycles, remember Chiron is in the mix. This is very much giving, if you've already seen a pattern with people or situations not serving your highest good, not in alignment with your values, not in alignment with your lifestyle, with your goals, then it is highly suggested that you start cutting these things off now, and you do not go into this energy with those things, because energy transfer is a very real thing. And that's, you know, Saturn in Pisces is trying to get you to really connect with, you know, your spirituality, is trying to get you to, this is why there's going to be challenges, the challenging, and it has already happened. Like, we've seen this happening. It's just on a massive scale. And so I think that it's going to come to a big shock for a lot of people. Massive awakenings for sure is going to happen. I would definitely say, if you haven't done inner child healing, you're going to be triggered. Your inner child is definitely going to want to come to the forefront. I also, like I said in Mercury's retrograde video, how, you know, your inner child is going to want to speak to you, and the child is closest to spirit, to source, right? And listening to that energy. But while this is in retrograde and Neptune in Pisces playing here, this can be, you know, a lot of illusions. This can be a lot of confusions. This can be a lot of distractions coming up to the forefront. So I always tell people, ask yourself, how does this impact me? And I will give you two answers. I would say, look at your astrology chart and see how it could impact you personally, because I'm just giving a general overview of what this energy is looking like. And I will also say, go into deep contemplation and meditation with yourself to really get acquainted with who you are, not your label from your career, because that's going to be challenged. There's going to be massive shifts and changes in careers and people's careers, massive shifts in what it is that they value. This, I mean, Venus also being in the 8th house, right? This is about, you know, other people's money as well. And, you know, how have you been energetically exchanging your currency with collective energy? This is also like taxes. So I can see how there's going to be massive I just see this can be very abusive energy. This can be renegotiating, reshifting, and like I said, definitely a wealth transfer for sure, which we have been in the midst of. But the revolution part is very personal, right? And like they say, the revolution will not be televised. But we also see how a lot of things are being televised right now. We see how a lot of things, not just televised through a television, but through like social media and the internet and whatnot. And so, yes, a lot of things are being shown, but there's a lot of things that have not been revealed that is going to be revealed after this as well. And if we are all focused, because Aries is very much about the self just as much as it's the head and it's the body, right? If we are very much just focusing on ourselves only, one person can make a change in the room, but it's better in numbers. And I feel like that's what Mars and Pisces is saying with it being in the 7th house. This is talking about your relationships with others on a spiritual level. This is talking about your relationship with others. Is it your medicine? Is it your poison? Can y'all come together and neutralize energies that may have been aggressive and provoking and that is not serving your highest, greatest good, and bringing it into a space of cleansing, right? So this is definitely a social cleanse as well. The 7th house is the house of marriage, and it does play a role with your career as well. It's not just, romantic love like a lot of people make it seem. And we have to be very realistic when we see these charts. Yes, stay positive. I highly recommend that everyone, have a positive mind when it comes down to these things, because as you think it you can create it, right? And as you will it, so it shall be. And so having a positive mind, but again, knowing the weather so that you know how to navigate through these things. So, and I also mentioned contracts and Mars being very much, war energy, also motivation and passion and stuff like that. So reevaluating your personal contracts in your life. This could also be the contracts of the energy exchanges that you have had with other businesses, right? Which is why I mentioned even like the blackout, right? There can be a massive blackout that can occur during this eclipse. Because again, let's just face it, a lot of us are paying bills we're not endorsing our bills, right? We're paying bills with money that no longer has value to these companies that are producing the light, the electricity for us. So how can you navigate this in your life to say, okay, I need to create a shift to create light in my home in a way where it's either endorsing certain bills or and whatnot. So it's very much giving mindfulness of, because of the brutality that I was seeing and the social injustice, is like perhaps and I mentioned like them challenging or even attacking your rights. And so I can definitely see how they're going to massively try to attack your sovereignty, right? And so how do you stay in your sovereignty that is balanced mind, body, and spirit? And I am trying to be mindful of my words because I do want this information to go out. And I do comprehend that some of the people that watch me are well aware of how these things work, but there's a lot of people that do not know how these things work. And a lot of those people are the ones that's going to have a very difficult time navigating through this energy. And perhaps they may not see it as difficult, but just like they're already in survival mode. So they're like, that's another thing, right? Like, give me a moment. Okay. So Pluto in the 6th house in Aquarius at 1 degree is a very potent degree. And Aquarius, like I mentioned, yes, is electricity, is plasma, is blood. Well, I mentioned blood and plasma, but it's also electricity in your daily routines. Okay? What is it that you need to change in your daily routines to be able to usher in resources, or even expand yourself out to others to provide resources, right? Because of the 7th house. Remember, it's also like the karmas with Saturn and Pisces, right? exchanging. So this could be making sure you have people to barter with. You know, are you able to be resourceful if the internet goes down? Are you able to be resourceful if things go down? Is it going to be a permanent down? No, absolutely not. I don't see that, especially because we have Uranus and Jupiter in the 10th house. This is not going to be something, it's going to be really fast. You know, with Mercury in Aries, this is going very, very fast. Like everything is going to happen super fast. And like I said, they have already been ushering in AI, but this is like an expedited rate, right? And so, how can you move your energy in a way where you're going to allow yourself to really go within, but also know how to energetically exchange with the people around you? Any questions? Because I know I said a lot. And I hope that makes sense. I'm just trying to look for, I had additional notes, so I want to make sure that I said everything that was in those notes as well. Give me a moment. Like I said, I'm going back to the notes that I wrote last night. So I spoke about the water contamination. I spoke about water shortage and and disasters. I spoke about medicines and poisons. I spoke about also, 15 degrees and 19 degrees in itself play a very karmatic role when it comes down to astrology. I'm feeling the depression, self-sabotage, pushing people away. Any advice on how to work through that? So, okay, that's loaded. That's a lot. And that's why I mentioned like doing the inner work, the healing work when it comes down to your Chiron, when it comes down to your inner child, when it comes down to you as an individual. It's going to be different for everyone. This energy with Aries in the North Node, I mentioned this almost 2 years ago now. This energy was going to provoke people into being a little bit more isolated and on their own. If the pandemic didn't do it, the demiurges are pushing this energy through as well. And how you navigate that energy is really a personal thing, right? It's really it's determined by you. So you can try to help a person out of depression as much as you like, but if that person is not open to receiving your healing, if that person is not open to receiving your help, your assistance, is that a detriment to you in your life? Is this something or someone that you just kind of have to pull away from and let them go through their transformation time? Because this energy very much can even scream like, suicide, suicidal ideations, especially I mentioned like the psychosis part of it with, and this can definitely be with men naturally have a higher rate of suicidal ideations or suicide as a whole than women do, because unfortunately, and I mentioned about social conditionings, they have been conditioned to not really know how to confront their emotions or integrate their emotions. And this is why I mentioned this is not only going to require emotional intelligence, but emotional regulation and emotional integration, so that you can simply be in your true discernment to move forward with this energy. There's a lot of ways of helping a person get out of depression. I have been a person who have been dealing with depression on and off like my whole life. And I'm also not a medical practitioner, and that is a medical terminology. And so, it is not my expertise to give you advice on that particular, but I can give you my experience, and I can share with you tools that have not only helped me but helped many other people with these symptoms, as to how to navigate out of those fields, right? And so I just really have to make that disclaimer and be very clear with my words, because you asked specifically for advice. And so these are suggestions, right? And the only advice I can say is, make sure that you are doing what you need to do to communicate with whoever is your wellness go-to individual, whether it is a medical practitioner or a holistic practitioner. That's as far as advice is concerned that I can give you. But suggestions, ice baths are really, again, that helps to regulate your nervous system. It helps shock your system, and it cools down the heat in the body, right? It cools down your heart rate so that you heal a bit faster. Depression in itself is like deep rest, right? That's how I look at it. So I'm talking about deep rest. A person who is in need of deep rest. Someone who may have had a lot of control issues of letting go of something. And let's just face it, with all these Aries energy here, and they're really trying to control the narrative, really, really, really big. And again, this is why it's important to know what this and how this energy is trying to move, so that you can get yourself to move at a rate that is fortunate for you, thriving for you. Give me just a moment. With Pluto in the 6th house, right? That is also your health, right? And so, how is your gut health, right? This is why I mentioned detoxing. This is why I mentioned, like, cold as I can take it. How long? Okay, again, that really depends, because you have to be mindful of that. I would strongly suggest that if you haven't done it before, and you're doing a cold plunge, to have somebody with you, because your body can what's it called, I can't think of the word right now, but your body can go into too much of a shock, and that can be detrimental to the body as well, because of how cold it is. So, it could be a minute for some of you. For some people, it's 30 seconds. For some people, it's 5 minutes. I definitely wouldn't extend 15 minutes, just because, I'm not going to tell anybody to go and do that, and then it'd be very harmful. I could also see how massive fires come about this, or even like I mentioned, war energy before. So bombing, right, on a collective level, from country to country and whatnot. I see, like, to control in my relationship, finally found someone I trust, and he hurt my feelings yesterday trying to help, and I have my walls up again. He hurt your feelings trying to help, right? So there's a form of resistance there, and there's a form of projection, right? Because the same way nobody can make you feel happy, nobody can make you feel better, nobody can really hurt your feelings. You hurt your own feelings, and maybe that's due to expectations, or that's due to conditionings or whatever. It's not to say that their actions or their words don't hold any weight, but how you receive it, that's a very personal thing. And a lot of the times people aren't taking self-accountability to their own creations. Your emotions are your own creations. Nobody can create that emotion for you. Somebody can give you everything you ever wanted in the world, ever desired in the world, and you would have think that would have brought on happiness, and you may not feel a speck of happiness because that's an internal job. And so, like you said, they were trying to help. At that point, are you becoming a detriment to yourself? Are you becoming a detriment to him? Are you becoming a detriment to all your relationships? Are they a detriment to you? Right? And this is where the self-evaluation comes in. This is where, why I mentioned all those things that I have mentioned. When you think of the sun, you also think of consciousness, and they're trying to, with the solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, and Neptune being in the 8th house of like bondage and, death and sex and, just other resources, is your self-identity based on your external world, right? That's why I mentioned some people only know how to identify themselves with their careers. Some people only know how to identify themselves with their marriage, right? I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a supervisor. I'm this. I'm that. That's their that's their identity of self, right? It's through those labels. And there's going to be a massive challenge and collapse to those labels, right, for your identity. And so this can be a massive identity crisis as well for many people. Which I'm grateful that you asked that question, because it allows for me to go deeper as to what I meant by the ways of identifying, right? Who are you besides those labels? Who are you besides? And then being mindful not to be like delusional, right? Or confused with this energy. A lot of people are going to be confused and questioning a lot about their life. And this is for spiritual activation and awareness for sure. Saturn playing a role with Pisces here, divine masculine energy, really being challenged again, like I said, with the feminine energy, and this could be a bit chaotic and explosive. This is really asking yourself, like, what has been your relationship with your father? What has been your relationship with your own internal divine masculine energy? Have you been hyper controlling, right, of circumstances and situations? And if so, where is it that you need to surrender? Where is it that you need to submit? Where is it that you just need to allow yourself to be and flow, right? To emotionally regulate the emotional intelligence that you have with yourself, to integrate that, to simply be in a space where you don't control everything in your life, but you are simultaneously in control of yourself, right? A union of self, a wholeness of self, of masculine and feminine energies. And so I definitely see how like the weather is going to be crazy, right? This can be, I definitely see like high solar flares knocking out the Schumann charts, like it did last year, but on a even like higher level. And it's already happened again this year. And so really just paying attention to that, and how are you digesting the information given to you, with Pluto in the 6th house, you know, are you tapped in with your ancestral lineage, and what does that mean to you? And is it something that you need to allow yourself to receive or break out of, right? With Chiron in the mix as well. So I kind of feel like I'm just circling back on a deeper level of everything that I had like mentioned before. 19 and 15 degrees are very karmatic energies, and in a very potent way that brings about transformation in a way that can be harsh or hard for most people, for the most part. And that is the collective energy, right? And so I'm not looking at your chart specifically. You know, that's something, if you would like to connect with me, then you feel free to do so. And then we can dive deeper into that. But I'm just looking at what's in front of me here for the collective, right? Not your particular situation. And so, you know, those are things to think about. I would also say, in regards to preparation of this energy, before I mentioned this with the Mercury retrograde video, to finish what you have started. So if there was something that you have started prior to this eclipse, prior to this energy, definitely, you know, we go into pre-shadow on the 18th. And then Mercury enters retrograde on April 1st. So definitely taking the time to just tidy, you know, declutter whatever it is that you need to declutter, finish what you started beforehand. And then coming into this energy, you will be initiating a new start and ushering in a frequency that is different from the last frequency you was on. Maybe your vibration seems to be a vibrational match, but the frequency has changed. It is different. Almost like a quantum healing or a quantum jumping in a sense, right? You know, this is definitely, I would even say, you know, be mindful of, what's that, like the Mandela effect, if you will. With this, now we've seen that happening already, but because of all this subconscious energy happening in the 8th house as well, that is definitely something to pay attention to. And that's Neptune is at 28 degrees, so it's almost at its end, it's almost at its peak, and that's really strong energy there for sure. But 29 for sure is like getting ready to close out that chapter to go into the new you know, the new decan and the new zodiac, closing out that decan. Excuse me. All right. Any other questions? I'm not sure if I'll have to do a part 2. I mentioned, you know, Libra is going to be in the 2nd house. Again, that is the house of finances, your personal finances. That is, you know, your personal values and, you know, materialism in a sense. So, and that's the South Node, you know, so that in itself is going to be transformed as well. And is it balanced? Is it are you being justified? I could also see, you know, certain people wanting, you know, either raises or just career changes as a whole. And I did mention businesses collapsing to really not usher in, because it's already been ushered in, but expediting, you know, AI technology, where a lot of, you know, where are you going to pivot to for your career? What is your skill? What is your talent? And what can you produce out there in the world for yourself, right? And others, that is in true alignment with your true identity, outside of like what your career has been. And is your job even replaceable by a machine? Is your job replaceable by, let's just face it, there's people, for example, there's people that they'll use like chat GPT to write down everything that they want to talk about, to create a speech or create a book or create all these things, and they tell it what they want it to like know and say, and then they read that information out, and you could almost feel, not almost, depending on the person, but you can feel when it's natural or if it's something that was AI generated, right? So are you operating from AI, or are you operating from OI, original intelligence? And yeah, so speaking on intelligence as well, I can definitely see how certain intelligence agencies are going to be exposed on some of the contracts and some of the things that they had implemented in social conditionings. And that has been something that has been coming out even more. But that's why we're going to see a lot of like military and war energy for sure. I mean, me based on this chart, what I'm looking at in front of me. Excuse me. Lilith is also in the second house as well, and so I can see a higher rate of like STIs, STDs, you know, people not necessarily taking care of themselves in that way. So what I would say, ask yourself, what am I addicted to? And how can I detox from this? How can I completely cut it off? How can I navigate through removing this energy or transmuting this energy or making this energy work for me, because it has become a poison, right? And some people are addicted to social media, some people are addicted to sex, some people are, and so this can definitely again, it depends on the individual how it's going to influence their body and their values and their finances. It's very individual. It's very individual. But that is the energy that we are going to experience with this eclipse. And so those are the questions that I challenge you to ask yourself, And if y'all would like to dive in deeper with shadow work, I'm definitely I'm definitely open to doing like a collective shadow work workshop together, so that we can dive into deeper questions and deeper energy work, right? Deeper breath work and movements and mudras that can help assist you in these areas as well. And with Leo being like the fortune and the rising energy, this again is ushering in the divine royal energy within your bloodline, ushering in the regalness, the self-confidence, the courage, like I said, the courage to take that risk to move forward. I just encourage y'all that pay attention, maybe surrender and be with yourself and observe this energy, and then navigate through this energy accordingly, with courage, and take the leap of faith, and take the risk that you need to take. And I feel like those risks are going to be crucial after the eclipse has occurred. And so some of these things, I feel like on that same day in itself, is it going to happen on that same day? Some of it, absolutely. Is some of it going to fully manifest afterwards? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the energy is put in motion there, right? And so that is what is to think about. what have you been investing in because of those changes and wanting to be a part of this wealth transfer? My candle is going wild. Wild. Okay. So y'all, I am going to leave it there. And like I said, if I have to do a part 2 on this energy, if I find more notes, I am also going to watch the replay on this. Yesterday in itself, the way I was feeling the energy, I just need, I'm trying to drink a lot more water so that I'm able to vocalize this information in a very digestible manner for everyone to understands, and overstands to the best of their abilities based on your level of consciousness. And so I'm not trying to use big words. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. All right. So the replay will be posted on YouTube. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I highly suggest that you do, because that's where I'm going to be posting more videos anyway. So if you didn't catch the beginning of this, I highly advise that you watch the replay and watch the beginning of it. Please remember to give a like, a share, a comment, whether you resonate with the information or not. That strongly supports the channel as well. It's not monetized, right? It's just simply so that it not only comes up in your algorithm, but other people can see this information as well, and it can potentially help someone else as well. So, doing your mental health check, doing your grounding work, as I mentioned, because of that, the psychosis energy, or the, the deeper sense of rest. I definitely, if you feel like you need to take time to isolate, that's okay. Just make sure you're also balancing that out moving forward with your peers around you. And but really ask yourself the deeper questions. Pisces is really, how can you look at the infinite potentials within your being while addressing the finite experiences that you are enduring, or just experiencing in general, right? And so that is it. That is all. Make sure that if you have any questions in regards to like water filtration, you can reach out to me as well. If you have any questions about that, or just, what is your water source? How clean is your water? Have you been doing further research when it comes down to the water around you? Do you have ways of, cleaning your water, just in case if anything was to happen? Are you living in a place surrounded by water, and are you prepared for any type of let's just say natural disaster, so for lack of better terms, right? Are you allowing yourself to do the detoxing you need to do and declutter from those things that's not serving you anymore? Are you asking yourself questions about your identity that, not only challenges the identity of like your career and your values, but that bring you into alignment with how you can pivot some of the things that aren't working for you to manifest in a more fruitful way that is in alignment with your fortune and your royalty and your DNA. All right, y'all. That is it. That is all. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you holding space. And I wish, Chantel, I wish you the absolute best and clarity in your journey. And, feel free to reach out if you need to. Until next time, wholeness.